Today's episode is brought to you by Pine on Ilios. Please, please play more Pine.
It's high noon.
Everyone, and welcome to High Noon Podcast, the competitive Overwatch podcast. I am your host, The Blevins. With me, as always, is Deathblow. What's up, buddy?
Not too much. What's going on?
Oh, just the first episode after Overwatch League is officially started. No big
Week
deal.
1 in the books. I'll try to keep my depression out of my voice. I'm sure everybody is ready for it and looking forward to it because I've been nothing short of obnoxious for 2 weeks. But nonetheless, that's part of what makes it fun. It made it more satisfying for the Blevins. So it was my way of looking out for you and improving your Overwatch League experience week 1.
Yes, and now it's going to feel even better when, we've both had it happen where, where someone says something about New York and you just immediately like, no, screw you. Oh, wait, we're not playing against each other.
Yeah, I'm not mad anymore. I like New York now.
Every time I see something Outlaws, my blood just starts to boil. I'm like, wait, I don't have to do that anymore. Okay. We could be on the same team again. We're
right.
We're good to go, at least for another couple of weeks.
Any listeners that have been here for 2 weeks, though, are going to just think it's like the most sacrilegious and weirdest thing ever that I'm going to be like outwardly in favor of New York's success now.
Yeah. But we still have we still have a recap of last week where we can still have our animosities intact. So
yeah, so I'll still be mad at you a little.
Yeah, I know. And I'm going to still be happy forever because NYXL will never lose a game. The end. But first we have a lot. We just have this might be like the most jam packed in terms of show notes. It's like a novel. So we're gonna go and we're just gonna blast through this and hope it's not a 4-hour show, or else we might have to think about starting yet another show. But let's start off. First things first. We got some new patrons and we got some big ones here. So starting it off, we had Phoenix O. Come in at the $10 level, so huge hype for that. And she tweeted at us actually as well and said, "The High Noon Podcast is my connection to the world of Overwatch as I drive a lot for work. These top blokes deserve recognition for the enthusiasm they bring to the OWL community. Keep up the great work, Blevins and Deathblow. # new patron hype." So huge thanks to Phoenix. Really appreciate it. And the patronage is awesome and we really appreciate that. But honestly, the tweet is just as touching to us. It's it's tweets like that. And it's people like that, listeners like that the reason why we started the show. It's we're going to focus on the competitive side, and a lot of people don't have time to watch all the matches, and a lot of people don't have time to get into the esports of it, but we're going to try to break it down and have it be at least a little bit entertaining so that you can actually get connected if you want to. So Phoenix, from the bottom of our hearts, we both thank you for that. And it still get goosebumps every time we get tweets like that, and reviews. And then we also had Braden B at the $1 level. So huge thanks to both Phoenix and Braden. If you guys want to support the show financially, you always can over at patreon.com/highnoonpodcast. We are ramping up a lot of stuff we're ramping up the giveaways, and we've got a lot of shows and whatnot that very greatly benefit from all of the patrons and listeners and everything. So huge thanks for that. And speaking of things and ramping up giveaways, I just wanted to just shout out the Pick'em League and everyone that's in it. We are up. Last I checked, we were at almost 300 people in the Pick'em League. Yeah. So we doubled in a week. So huge shout out to that. And I wanted to say we are going to add some prizes to that. I wanted to make sure that we added Overwatch League tokens once we got them. So we are adding, I'll just go over all the prizes right now. There's always still a chance to add more, which I might. This is like my baby giveaway here. So I keep adding more stuff. But for now, sit tight. This is what the prizes are. For first place, for the High Noon Pick'em High Noon Podcast League, We've got 800 Overwatch League tokens, so 8 skins for you for your favorite Overwatch League team, or you can just always pick NYXL no matter what. A High Noon Podcast shirt, an Overwatch League team hat of your choice, and 20 loot boxes, as well as a free subscription to the High Noon Podcast Twitch. So first place looking pretty stacked right now. Second place is going to get 500 Overwatch League tokens, so 5 skins from the Overwatch League collection, 20 loot boxes, and a free sub to the High Noon Podcast Twitch. And then third place is going to get 3 Overwatch League skins, 10 loot boxes, and a free sub. So we've got one of the biggest pick'em leagues out there. I don't know if he can still join. You probably can, right? You're just down a week.
Yeah, you're just down a week, but it's okay. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna win first place.
Yeah, I mean, I did pretty bad.
I want them skins.
Yeah. So, I mean, even if you haven't joined yet, don't fret. You still can. There's probably going to be a lot of people in, and there's going to be a lot of upsets. We had some upsets this week. I'm sure there's going to be even more upsets. And the league is long. The weeks are long, so you're not out of it yet. Even with the zeroed out first week, get in there. We're in the featured leagues. Make sure you join the High Noon Podcast League over at highnoonpick'em.com. And just a quick shout out to High Noon Pick'em. They hit their break-even Patreon goal. So they now are making enough money to keep the servers up. So that was really good news. Huge shout outs to the High Noon Pick'em team, which I think is just one guy. So
yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's just one guy. So huge shout out to him. Huge shout out to High Noon Pick'em. Make sure you go check out highnoonpick'em.com. I'm just going to run through all the stuff we've done. Jeez, this is like a whole new show where we just talk about the shows we do. I made an audio match ticker. So basically if you're on the video, you can see the match ticker down there. All the matches that happened last week. I just made a little audio thing. It's about 1.5 minutes long of me just talking about the scores. If you missed the scores and you just want them real quick, they're right there. If you are a podcast or a show that wants to use that in your show, just let us know. I'm just putting it out there for the world to use. Have it. Like, if you don't want to record it yourself or you don't have the means to, I got some cool music on there. Feel free to use it, and just shoot us a message, and it's yours to use. So I'm going to be putting it out. It's going to come out every Sunday right after the matches. So if you miss the matches or miss some of the matches, you can always just check it out right there. As we alluded to in the pre-show, Foul Play episode 2 is now up and live. It's not up on the podcast feed, but it is up on YouTube, and it's also on Twitch. Twitch highlights. So
Twitch highlights. Yeah, it's not on the podcast feed yet. That'll be tonight.
Yeah, podcast feed will be tonight, but you can go over to YouTube. It is there. Foul Play episode 2. It is Deathblow and A. Smith, and I was watching it live. I couldn't participate, unfortunately. I was pretty sad about that, but I did watch it live, and honestly, like, it's such a great show. It is a fantasy Overwatch League show. So if you're either new to fantasy or you're a fantasy veteran, you have some teams over at winstonslab.com. Check it out. A lot of great insights. I literally go on the Discord and ask questions for my friend, who's definitely not me, for fantasy advice, and A. Smith and Deathblow, and to a much lesser extent, me, answer those questions for you and answer them on the show. So definitely check that out. And then I also wrote up a power rankings update. So we had the power rankings before week 1, right after the preseason that Deathblow wrote up. I wrote an addendum or an updated version of that for post week 1. Death is going to be writing the next week, and we're just going to kind of flip, or one of us is going to be writing them every week. So we have an update there. That's going to be over at highnoonpodcast.com. And then Around the Payload episode 4 is recording tomorrow, so Tuesday. That's a star-studded lineup. We've got returning guest ZP, returning guest Deathblow, new guest I Play Games from the Omnic Lab podcast, as well as the Overwatch League recap. God, I hope I'm not messing that up. There's so many new Overwatch League
it's hard to keep
Overwatch League podcasts that have relatively similar names, and they're all good. And then also newcomer and newly minted Overwatch League caster Hexagrams is coming to Around the Payload for the first time, coming to the High Noon podcast family for the, I don't know, 5th or 6th time. He's one of the OGs, but he is here with his newly minted and nice and shiny Overwatch League caster button. So that's going to be a big one. The reuniting of Hexagrams and ZP. I'm excited. I don't even want to be on the show. I just want to watch it. Like, I'm just going to be like, okay, guys, you guys do the show. I'm just going to sit back, make some popcorn and watch it. So it's going to be a good one. Definitely check that one out.
It'll be a lot of fun. I can't wait for it. I also can't wait to hear you actually screw up and say "Around the Podcast," brought to you by High Noon Payload.
Yeah,
I'm really excited for that to happen. I just realized now that it's probably.
Yeah, okay, so we're actually going to get onto some actual topics of the show, and I'm thinking there's got to be a way to condense this or something. So I'm going to try not to spend the first 10 minutes of the show talking about stuff that we're doing, although it does feel really good to be able to do that, and I am super proud about all the stuff that we're putting out. So no shame there. I'm just going to try to find a way to do it faster next time. And we haven't even talked about what we did last week, Death. Did anything fun and exciting happen for you? Did any maybe league start of the Overwatch variety?
Yeah, you know, honestly, that's probably the highlight. That wasn't just watching Overwatch League, and it was so much fun this week. In all honesty, I'm just really beyond impressed with the product that Blizzard put out for this event and for the beginning of the league. It's only going to get better. I'm really excited about that. But we did a live experts draft for the Foul Play League, where we drafted off platform, off of Winston's Lab, so that we could get the traditional like random draft order, snake style draft, and kind of have that added level of strategy. And yeah, to be honest, just fun, because they're the most fun about fantasy football. As much as I love the regular season and managing the roster and all that stuff, the draft is by far the best, most fun part of fantasy. So it was really a good time to do that. Really happy with my team. It went really well. I think we all had a really good time with it. It's a really good group. Like, they're already throwing just infinite amounts of shade in the form of the league gifs on Twitter, things like that. So it should be something we have a whole lot of fun with throughout the regular season. Really excited. What about you, bud? What'd you do?
So if you don't count all the Overwatch League I watched, I saw the new Jumanji movie, which was actually quite good. If you're a Jack Black fan, you will love this movie. He played the role in that movie perfectly, and the movie is basically exactly what you think it is if you see the preview. Like, it's a lighthearted, funny movie with a really good concept that they execute on quite well. So that's it. There's nothing too deep about it. It's a fun movie. It's funny, and it's one of those movies where I like walk away from it being like, I want to live in that world. Like, why can't I go into video games like that? Like, so definitely
VR, man, it's coming.
I can't wait for Ready Player One to just be reality.
Is that dystopian society? We can't wait for it.
I can't possibly wait for that. I would love that. Are you kidding me? The only difference is that now it's not socially acceptable. That's the world I'm living in right now. But let's move right along to, of course, my favorite segment of the show.
Overwatch Today, meme of the week.
That, of course, is our meme of the week. Not brought to us by Overwatch Today this time. Actually brought to us by the actual Overwatch League staff and statisticians who, when you're watching Overwatch League, they put up a bunch of like stats up on the screen. Pine had
push notification style stuff.
Pine had 8 million more damage than any other player to ever play Overwatch, or Linkser hit 58 more headshots than anyone could ever imagine possible. Well, they had one that was called Zen Master, and it was a stat meant to be highlighting Shaz, and it says Shaz leads all non-Jonak Zenyatta's in hero damage per 10 minutes with 6,737. So Jonak has literally already become his own subcategory when delineating supports. Shaz was the top of all Zenyatas in all supports with the exception of Jonak, which is just it's just assumed at this point. Like it's of course besides Jonak. So you did good, but not as good as Jonak is the new meme that is coming along, and I hope that they run with it because I just want that to be the case.
Well, he's going to need to keep his numbers up in outlier territory to make it like an accurate and worthwhile statement. I mean, they can keep the meme going as long as he's number one. I mean, I guess it's still a true statement. Like he could be in last place and it would still be a true statement, right?
Right.
So if they want it to be a meme, it could be a meme. Let's keep it going.
Just Jonak, just keep dominating
and bring back Mr. X's box.
Yeah, bring back the box. Yes, let's do that. But we've got a lot of matches to talk about, so let's move right along.
It's tournament talk.
So I am going to run through these match scores real quick, even though if you're on the video, you can see them down here. I'm going to run through them real quick. And then we have a couple that we're going to talk more through, or do we want to do it a different way?
Yeah, we'll talk about the ones we want to talk about after the fact.
Okay.
After we read through them.
On Wednesday, we saw the Los Angeles Valiant beat the San Francisco Shock 4-0. Los Angeles Gladiators beat the Shanghai Dragons 4-0, and Seoul Dynasty beat the Dallas Fuel 2-1. There's a draw there. Thursday, we saw London Spitfire beat the Florida Mayhem 3-1. Philadelphia Fusion beat the Houston Outlaws 3-2, and New York Excelsior beat the Boston Uprising 3-1. Friday, we saw LA Valiant beat Dallas Fuel 3-0. Boston Uprising beat Florida Mayhem 4-0. San Francisco Shock beat the Shanghai Dragons 3-1. And then on Saturday, we saw London Spitfire beat Philadelphia Fusion 4-0. New York Excelsior beat Houston Outlaws. New York Excelsior beat Houston Outlaws. New York Excelsior beat the Houston Outlaws 3-1, and Seoul Dynasty beat the Los Angeles Gladiators 4-0. Sorry, I just kept losing my breath.
I think we heard you, bro. I think we heard you. Deserved. Yeah. I will take it gracefully. I really have no choice because of how much I dished out prior to. But first, honestly, the first match we're gonna take a look at here is kind of the match of the week, right? And there was even like a really nice kind of highlight video done for it by the Overwatch League. They put that out, so make sure you check that out. I'm fairly certain that's got to just be right on the website. Somebody linked me a video is where I saw it, but a really, really great match here, and one that I think everybody kind of had highlighted going in. Like there were two, the ones that we're going to talk about, I think stood out the most. Dallas versus Fuel was Junkertown, Anubis, Ilios, and Numbani. And Junkertown was all day or all weekend a really, really interesting map in the sense that like nobody was able to get any real progress on defense in the first 2 points, and everything just kind of played out in point 3. The only time we saw a hold before that was in abbreviated time. And this was definitely no exception. So Dallas gets slowed a bit at times, not too much though. They actually finish out the map with about a minute left. Seoul needed overtime to cap the second point, and they were unable to actually complete the map. So Dallas does get the big win there, and they were running a really interesting comp. They had Siegel, Custa, Harry, Mickey, Taimu, and then I wrote Mickey twice, so of course I have it wrong.
Effect, probably.
Yeah, Effect, 100%. So yeah, they had a really, really interesting lineup. Like there's no main tank there. They ran the first ones to run it, I think, right? That we might not have seen it earlier in the day, but it was the first time I think I remember seeing it anyways. I don't know. There's this new comp. It's this double sniper, Bastion, Orisa. You've got like one support as well, like just the Mercy. You put your Zenyatta on the Bastion and your DPS players on the snipers. And I thought Dallas has a really good loadout for this. Like the lineup they're using with Siegel on the Hanzo, like there's probably not a better Hanzo on their roster than Siegel. So it's really great to be able to bring him out. Get some use out of him, and I really like that they were able to do that with their players. After that, we go into Anubis, and things definitely get away from Dallas here. They end up, I think, so they lose the next 2 maps, and then they draw the last one to finish at 2-1. Anubis was really interesting. It was another like just
map ever played.
It was really, really good. There was like so many points taken back and forth, like just no defense. So Dallas comes out with like triple tank and attack. They swap into a Reaper for the second point. Quick cap, 6 minutes and 14 seconds remaining. Just an absolute steamroll there. Seoul actually comes in a little behind them. They had 4:48, but I mean, still 5 minutes left is a lot. They really kept the map in play there. Again, absolutely like no resistance from Seoul on defense on Dallas's next attack. They've now completed twice with 4 minutes and 30 seconds left, so they've still got more than half the map time that they like start with to play after completing twice. Seoul killed their attack. It took them 90 seconds on their second attack, and they really made up a good amount of time there. I mean, they were still behind, but not as much. The third attack for Seoul was when they finally like saw some defense. Dallas won exactly one fight, and Seoul finished with like 11 seconds left. So now it's 6 points there for Seoul, and Dallas actually struggled a lot in their final attack. Like things finally gave way. Dallas struggled to finish point one even. They do barely take it, but they're just unable to finish. Like they couldn't get that quick roll to tie things up. So Seoul with a really interesting point one hold there kind of finally broke the offensive shootout that was going on there. Then Ilios was a pretty, let's see. Actually, my notes are confusing. I think it was a 2-0 there on Ilios for Seoul.
Close.
It wasn't super close, especially on Well. I know that one was 1-0, but okay. They lost the point once on Lighthouse, but overall the win was pretty easy. So things kind of really slipped away from them there. And then on Numbani, Dallas quick caps A. They don't really finish the rest of the map, and they barely cap it in overtime. Seoul was able to basically meet the same thing. Like they both kind of finished. And then nobody was able to make any progress on A on the second stage. So they ended up drawing out that map and a 2-1 win here for Seoul. It was a really, really interesting map. I thought, honestly, this was kind of Dallas's better match of the two. I think they kind of kept a better head on their shoulders as this one slipped away from them, and they kind of maybe not expected it to happen, but they were much more mentally prepared to lose this one than they were their second one. So they definitely held out and stayed in this one a good bit. Any big takeaways here? I mean, obviously this was one where it was the headliner, right? So everybody was rolling out their starters, and we saw here Dallas really just kind of didn't stack up to them. How surprised were you at the kind of the lopsidedness of it?
So coming into it, I wouldn't have expected that to happen. But thinking back about it, and we talked a little bit about this in the pre-show, I was thinking like, for basically the history of Envious as a team, and even back when like the core of them was the old IDDQD roster, the team, not the player. Man, didn't think that was going to be said in 2018. But even back then, their whole MO was, we are the best team and the best players in the world. We are going to play what we're comfortable with. We don't care what the meta is. And they've said this multiple times. It's just well documented that
evident in their play.
Evident in their play, and they've just said it outright in multiple interviews. We don't care what the meta is. We play what we want, and we play it better than you're going to play the meta. That's just the way it is. And they've never had any sort of contest up until Apex Season 2, when they lost to the core of Seoul Dynasty. I was really making sure that I didn't say Shanghai Dynasty. I just needed to just mentally make sure I didn't say the wrong thing. But the core of Seoul Dynasty, which was Lunatic High, so they saw, we could kind of predict from that, but really I think Envy and Dallas Fuel really are getting challenged in Overwatch League. I think this first week, and I'm really glad we saw it. I think I talked about this a few weeks ago about like, we're going to see that like the differentiation, we're going to see Overwatch League become varsity very quickly. And I think we saw it this week where, the contenders teams, they're playing their scrims at contenders level, and then there's Overwatch League, right? It's not going to be like, oh, well, anyone in the world can play in Overwatch League, and you can just see, it's like, just jump right in. It's so great. It's like, nope, you're going to there's going to be a huge ramp up. And we started to see that. And I think a few teams, Mayhem is a huge, victim of this mentality of like, well, we're just going to play old Overwatch and we're going to play that well and we're going to be able to, you know, just overpower people. Wrong. That's not going to, even against the mid to low tier teams in Overwatch League, they are going to be way better than I think any other teams that aren't playing in Overwatch League right now. So was I surprised a little bit? But I'm not surprised. Like looking back in retrospect, it doesn't seem as surprising. Like I'm not like, wow, I can't believe that ever happened, and I just can't imagine the world where that happened. It's like, no, it actually makes a lot of sense. And that was kind of echoed in Dallas's other loss against the Valiant, where it's like, you know, Valiant, formerly Immortals, you know, they had the skill, but I don't think a lot of people really pegged Valiant beating Dallas. I don't think a lot of people picked that. I don't remember what the percentages from the pick'em were last week, but it definitely was not favoring Valiant. And I think Valiant has just really, they've leveled up, obviously, since their Contenders performance, if you can even call it a performance. And they've really bought into this. You know, we're running this as an Overwatch League organization, and we are doing all the extra stuff outside of the game. I think is just really, really benefiting them and showing that they are an Overwatch League team, not just a really good Overwatch League, or a really good Overwatch team.
Yeah, it's a really interesting way to kind of put it, like that there's teams that are like still trying to stick to the old ways and think that what worked for them before can work again. And you see some teams that aren't doing that and are being rewarded from it. And then you see some other ones that seem to be like trying to do it, and it's just like costing them at the like they're doing it wrong at the moment. And speaking of which, we might as well just move right into one of them and talk about the next matchup here. This one was obviously my Houston Outlaws losing 1-3 against the New York Excelsior. Honestly, I thought this was a pretty good match outside of like having to remove myself from the frustration of what was happening.
Yeah.
And just no two ways around it. I've been very vocal about my stance on this team and their roster going into it. And I think I've even said, like, if we went back and combed the archives, I'm sure we could find me say the phrase, like, if Clockwork goes in, all bets are off. Like I'm operating on the assumption that he's not really going to play very much, and they're going to just be sticking with Jake and Linkser and maybe use Mendo. But even that, I didn't feel confident they would, and they didn't at all. But taking a look at this, it started out on Junkertown again. New NYXL here had a phenomenal attempt in overtime. SBB read Linkser like a book and just absolutely crushed him in that final push for the attempt for New York to
almost
take out
it too at the
that
end.
map. Oh, it was a beautiful play. It was so great to see. Fortunately, Jake fragged out and was able to stop them from capping the point. Houston was patient and better with alt management, I think, by a large margin in this map. Like this was the only map Houston won, but this was like really confidence building for me as a fan. Like they were coming off a loss. It was great to see them just show up, play their game, play their style, do what they do, and they did it really, really well. So credit to Houston for that one. I think they resoundingly beat New York on that particular map here.
Yeah.
And especially that map, it looks like it was close because New York like almost finished, but like that last like 5 feet is like the whole progress.
Right. Yeah.
Like they should just get rid of
the
it
last
completely.
5% is 95% of the map.
Yeah. So it looked really, it looked close on paper. But I do think Houston solidly took that map. And curiously in their press conference, they said that Junkertown is a map they have a ton of practice on. They have been drilling it like crazy, and you could see it. So it was great to see from that. It gets worse from here, boys. Moving into Anubis, New York is able to take point one pretty easily.
Before you go into it, were there subs going into this map?
No.
Okay.
No, everybody stayed the same going into the second map. I might be missing a New York tank sub on here.
They all it's
No,
it's either
I've got
Mecco
it.
or Mono or Nico or
but I actually have it written down. I see it here now. So no substitutions yet, but into Anubis we go. New York takes the first point pretty easily. They do get just constantly picked trying to approach on point two.
Oh my God. Jake, credit where credit's due. Jake was going off on Junkrat on that map.
Yeah, anytime, any map that gives them the ability to run Junkrat where it's really strong, Houston is going to be at least very, very difficult to do much on here. New York is able to complete the map. They've got 1:43 left when they do. Notably here, no Sombra defense from Houston. I really thought they would play that. Now they got Raucus and Bonnie, and I know Bonnie's really well schooled on the Sombra play, but they weren't alone. It seems to be phasing itself out of Anubis a little bit, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. Houston not able to complete and finish the map, and they were really, really close to getting it in overtime. And in this scenario, we've seen a lot crazier things happen than holding on point one with a 1.5 left. So they would have had a decent chance. But I've got to say, if you didn't get a chance to see it, and I don't know that it was really pointed out by the broadcast, Mono clutches out, and he is able to kill Linkser with his Mei. And then while Bonnie's coming in to res him, he's able to get the kill on Bonnie too. And if that res comes up, like even if Bonnie dies as a result, I think Houston is going to be able to complete that map. But because he got both of them and even followed up, like they snowballed from there and kept Houston from capping. A really, really beautiful play from Mono.
There was a point where SBB did the same thing, where he like baited Bonnie to come in and then killed both when he res. It's like, okay, just the disrespect.
The mercy games. And you're like forced as a mercy. That's why I hate playing the hero so much. You're forced to just make these awkward scenarios, and it's always wrong to trade your life for another res. But like at the same time, especially now with the cast time, it's like unavoidable. You can just get trapped and do nothing about it.
Yep.
But we're 1-1 moving into the third map. Janus comes in exchange for Mono. Pine comes in exchange for Libero. I didn't write the O, so that made it like really hard.
Libero.
But so Pine
Big
comes
Daddy
in for Libero,
Pine.
and Clockwork comes in for Jade. Moving into Ilios, this is the second time around. And Clockwork, the first time around, it was brutal. I don't mean to like pile on, and I don't, they're my team. I'll support them. I don't support playing Clockwork, but I will continue to support the team. It was brutal in the first time around, and it wasn't really that way this time, which is why I bring it up. But the first time he was in, it was on Oasis, not Ilios, worth noting. But he had 2 kills, 6 deaths, and like his ult was charging slower than his Mercy's ultimate was charging, and like that's not how Tracer needs to go. Right. We can have the conversation about was it his fault, was it not, another time, or in Discord. I'm clearly very willing to have that conversation. So by all means, stop in and talk to me about it. But on here, Clockwork, honestly, he did okay. He was on the kill feed. He was doing work. He had some moments until basically everybody on the team was dead for New York except for Pine. And like just this hero play out of nowhere, like literally it's 4 people are down for New York. The percentage is pretty close, and I think Houston actually controlled the point. I could have that wrong.
I remember this because I was in my car listening to it on my like radio, because I plugged my phone into my car radio, and I'm like, what's going on?
And he did okay on this point on Ilios, but it was just, he got to the point where like Houston's in the cleanup phase. There's Pine and one other guy, and I think it's like a diva who's not even particularly close by. And then Clockwork gets nearby, flash, headshot, bang, he's dead. Then it picks off Linkser from across the pit, and like just one at a time, just bang, bang, boom, and just McCreed everybody into the ground. I believe it was a 4K, like and down 4 in the fight. Like it was just an unbelievable play. I can't stress enough how sick it was. You'll see it in the top 10 plays of the week when those come out. They might be out already by the time you're listening to this. If not, they'll be out early Wednesday. I know they were a little later as we get used to the process here this week than they'll be normally. Make sure you check it out. Both of his plays and both of his matchups were just absolutely phenomenal. He had huge ones in both maps he played. Going into Ruins, I really, honestly, I thought Linkser and Pine, the battle was incredible. Those two were really, really back and forth. No one really else won their battles for Houston, so I don't think you have to really look at it and like notice how many times Linkser got Pine, like took him out, forced him off of his spot. There was a really good back and forth between them, but like every time somebody tried to like dive in and help Linkser and like do some damage to Pine, or somebody else tried to move him, didn't work out. They got crushed. New York decidedly won that one. And honestly, on that one, as much as I want to say, like Clockwork played poorly, the cameras were very focused on the Widow duel that was going on. It was pretty quick. I can't decidedly say he was too bad there. But he, it did okay. I think the big thing here is that I think Blevins, you'll agree with me. Most people agree with me. It's a downgrade to bring him in, right? You're hurting yourself from a pure talent standpoint. Even if you admit he's a better tracer than Linkser, I'm saying I would rather keep them together just for the sake of team cohesion and just momentum, things like that. Like they were competitive with them right up until here. It was 1-1. There was no reason for me to start making these switches and to do this when you were in the middle of a match that was an opponent that's either in your ballpark or above you. Like I don't think anybody had Houston markedly above New York by any means. So no reason to be taking this lightly like maybe they did with Philadelphia. It's hard to say. I have a couple theories there, but again, I'll save those for Discord for the most part, or maybe later in the matchup conversation. But moving into the last map here, it was Numbani. Libero comes back in for Pine. Jake comes in for Linkser. So now we're taking Linkser out, which is mind-blowing to me. It doesn't make any sense.
I can't imagine a scenario where that's the correct play.
I don't see it either, especially, and I really hope we figure it out soon too, right? Because the tweets from Flame don't make me think they're learning this lesson the right way. They're like, people are asking the wrong questions about what went wrong, and it's like, maybe you're not looking at the thing that you're taking something as a given, okay? You're like not coming at it with you're bringing in assumptions that are tainting your output. That's what I think is happening for the team anyways, unless they are learning their lesson here and they come out and we don't see Clockwork next week. It could be a completely different scenario
based on what we've heard on Twitter.
Right. And honestly, Houston's like the one team kind of like telling the truth to people when they ask a little bit. Like they've kind of said from the beginning, Clockwork was going to see time. He was and I'm trying to like read through it, right? Because what did London tell us? Well, the rosters are going to stay together at the beginning of the season, and then we'll try to work. Oh, and instantly they're mixed, and we're so nobody's been honest so far. But what Houston said did kind of add up and turned out to be true. But trying to read through the tea leaves and what I think is common sense, we got to a different conclusion. But I don't know. We'll see how they adjust and how they plan for it going forward. On the overall, I'm not super worried because I think the results speak for themselves. I think the eyeball test clears this one up. It's a much better team when it's Jake and Linkser. Nothing against Spree, nothing against Clockwork. Like if you take all that stuff away, the predisposed, not liking Clockwork that I have, the results I do think speak for themselves. So I think we'll get there eventually. But to wrap up this map here, this matchup, Numbani, basically it was just kind of over already. Like New York cruised to the first 2 points and they were slowed for a bit on the last point, but they did finish. Houston got off to a fast start, but they never even capped point two. Really, really quick first cap, but never even finished two to kind of just finish that map out. Yeah, I mean, it definitely happens, but it's not like a 0.1 hold. But usually you see them get in and maybe an early stop there. I don't know. So might as well use this opportunity here since we're talking about both of them. I think kind of the thing that defined a lot of these teams and a lot of the surprises were how substitutions were used. While we're talking about both teams, New York's not immune to this. We talked a bit before the show, and listen, there's a lot of things I noticed during this tournament here, and a lot of it I think is centered around kind of the maps that are played in the middle of it. Like Houston had 8 maps to prepare for. Every single map in the map pool for this stage had to be played this week for Houston. New York was on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. Their map pool was duplicated across both their matches. They only had to study and prepare for 4 this week. So I think stuff like that is going to make an impact and it's going to help, right? And when we look at teams like New York and how we can project them going forward and how we look at their play time for their roster going forward, we need to see another week before we can make a firm decision, because we only saw Pine on Ilios, and Pine was the best player on the screen for both matches when he was out there, and it wasn't the eye test said it wasn't even remotely close. So it's not a problem for New York like it is for Houston, because when they take out the guy that should be there, when they take out their star, they're bringing in an adequate top tier replacement player, right? Like Libero's is right up there, right? He's really, really good. He's really solid. He's super consistent. He just doesn't flash and he doesn't dominate quite like Pine does. But I have a major concern for New York going forward, because this is the analogy that I thought of, and I'm proud of it. Everybody knows who Dan Marino is, right? He was one of the best quarterbacks ever. The biggest knock on Dan Marino is that he never won a championship. And part of the reason he didn't win a championship was because the team really mismanaged how everything worked. They were a run-first offense their entire time with Dan Marino, and it didn't make any sense to be. They had the receivers. They had one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Just pass the ball. They didn't even have like a good running back, right? But they would just constantly try to run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. They'd be down 14 points going into the fourth quarter, and the coach would give up and say, okay, Dan, go throw for it. It stops working in the playoffs, right? Like you can't just do that to the best teams in the league.
Freebies, right?
Right. So you have to like put your best foot forward from the beginning and bury people, especially in the playoffs. But they were stubborn and they kept running the ball, and then would try to pass at the end, and it wouldn't work out in the playoffs, and they would lose. As a result, Dan Marino's not really given enough respect for the career that he had because they never won a championship. He doesn't have that ring. And you're comparing him to, he didn't even go to the Super Bowl, and you're comparing him to guys in his own division. Jim Kelly went to 4 Super Bowls. You know, you've got guys, Terry Bradshaw with 4 Super Bowl rings, a little bit before his time, but you get my point. Super Bowl rings measure the quarterback. And Dan Marino gets no respect because he doesn't have one. And I really worry that somebody like New York could be turning Pine into Dan Marino, right? Yeah. What happens when we get to the end here? And now, hey, fun fact, who's the first team to drop a map to Boston in the regular season too? Oh, boy.
But guess what? Boston's not bad anymore. Boston's on the
all
up
I'm
and up.
saying is all preseason. All I heard was it was just preseason. It was just preseason.
It was just preseason, but also Boston is all right now.
They're not. They're 10th in my rankings. let's not go overboard. But yeah, so I don't know. I have this concern that, you know, New York's going to give away too many maps, hurt themselves, maybe cost themselves a first round bye, right? Like maybe they're in the top of the division race and they don't quite get it based off a tiebreaker. You never know when this stuff's going to happen. And if it's because they lost a map in week 1 to Boston because they were, you know, trying to do something or make some weird statement with Pine, like to a certain extent, don't outthink yourself. Don't outcoach yourself. Just put your best players out there and win the game. And worry about how to replace them when they need a break or when there's some reason to do it. You know, I don't think you have to necessarily look at your roster like I have to get these guys in. Part of what we talked about with subs was how are they going to use them? It's going to be super exciting because we wanted to see them in the weird places. We wanted to see them as a surprise, not like, well, Pine has this map and Libero has this map, and you know, Clockwork has this map and Linkser has this map. That's not going to surprise people. That's not going to give you an advantage. That's going to give them something to prepare for and give them something to get ready for. I think teams are trying to use all their players now. And week 1 is the time when you like don't use subs, right? You put your starters out. Like we were talking about playing time. How is it going to be? Was it going to be Agilities or was it going to be Silk Thread? Was it going to be Pine? Was it going to be Libero? And like we didn't really get those answers because they're trying to use both of them and all of them. And like, I don't know, I think this is going to have to get to the point, and teams will eventually get there on their own, is where, okay, here's your starters, here's your backup. Are we losing? Like, are we losing a match that we thought we had a much better chance in? Well, let's shake something up, right? Now we're down 0-2. Let's try to bring somebody in that can spice us up, change up the hero pool, give them something they haven't prepared for or haven't seen, and go from there. And I think Houston and Dallas were the biggest two. Dallas, again, everybody less than Houston. Houston is the worst hurt by this because Dallas had a higher quality of opponent, I felt like. It made sense. Yeah, it made sense that like they have the hardest first 2 weeks of the season, hands down. So yeah, I don't know. There was a lot of teams that were impacted by this, and there's a lot of teams that weren't. And so far, we almost seem to be seeing teams be rewarded for not bringing it with the exception of Florida, for not bringing in all these extra players, right? Like, and you look at the teams that did do well, that have all these extra players. How many substitutions did London make this week? 0. They didn't make any. They didn't do anything.
That hurt my fantasy teams a lot.
Yeah, it was brutal. Thanks for that, London. But in all seriousness, you know, you have teams like Seoul that did make some substitutions, but I believe it was, I'm trying to remember who their second matchup was off the top of my head, and I'm blanking. But
Seoul's second matchup was against the Fusion.
The Gladiators.
Oh, Gladiators, sorry.
Yeah, so I mean, they were going up against the Gladiators there, and I think everybody did expect them to win that one by a large margin. So they played Kuki instead of Miro, but they did it for the whole map, right? They didn't disrupt the team's cohesion in the middle of the map. when there was no reason to.
Yeah.
And again, when you're upgrading to do it, it's not going to look as bad. Like, right, like New York is giving themselves their best player when they make these substitutions, so it doesn't look as bad when they do it, as opposed to like taking your best player out when you're in a match and you're trying to close. And what did I say about Houston going into it? I know these guys can hang with everybody, right? And we saw that it wasn't a blowout against New York until the substitutions started coming in. It wasn't a blowout against Philly through the whole thing, even with the substitutions. We know they can hang with everybody. Can they finish? If you want to play your full roster, if you want to use clockwork, use them in map 1. You'll have better results if you're getting your guys out there in round 2, in map 2. Linkser comes in, and then he gets to settle in to finish out the map. I really think making them, the changes they are, when they are, and the circumstances they are has been a mistake, and I don't think they're isolated to it either. A lot of teams had it come up, and it really defined the first week for me.
Yeah. So the only real rebuttal I have for at least for the Pine argument, I don't think I can make too big of an argument for the clockwork over Linkser, because I would rather just have Linkser play Genji instead of Clockwork play Tracer. Like, just run it. But
they've been running Linkser as Tracer on Dorado. So it's not like we don't even have Tracer gameplay from Linkser to look at it and compare it to and to say it works better. I think we know it does. But anyways, go on.
Yeah. Regardless. So I talked a little bit about this in the pre-show. Is if, like, in old Overwatch, we saw Envious, who's now basically Dallas Fuel. Their old mantra was, screw the meta, screw what you're doing. We are going to play our game, and we're going to play it better than you. We're going to overpower you. We've seen this not be successful, at least in this week 1 and in the preseason of team. Like, the upgrade has happened. Overwatch League teams are better than old Overwatch teams. It's just what has happened, and it's going to continue. That gap is going to continue to further itself. So if New York, for whatever reason, thinks or has found in their playing that Libero's hero pool is better on X map, on Junkertown, and Pine's hero pool is not as good. Libero's hero pool is better than Pine's hero pool on Junkertown. If they found that to be the case, even if Pine can play Widowmaker and just be better on the map than Libero, like stats wise, it's still the quote unquote wrong decision from a technical and from a strategy standpoint, and they don't want to get in the habit of making the wrong strategy decision just because Pine is better, because it's possible that in the future that might not be the case if people start to catch up, or if whatever happens, you don't necessarily want to build your franchise and your whole entire team strategy to be like, okay, if Pine pops off, we win. If Pine struggles, we lose. You don't necessarily, you want it to be the process of what we're doing is going to be good if we as a team execute, not if Pine pops off, we win, and if Pine doesn't, we lose. That's one argument I could see being the case, maybe. I don't know. I have no reason I haven't heard anything from NYXL about it and their strategy about it. I don't know.
And I don't expect to, because as long as it's working, they don't have to explain themselves, right? Like, they can just continue to do it. And like we said, Libero's a much better replacement, right? Like,
Libero's
they're not
a fantastic player.
Right. He is a really, really good, clearly Overwatch League level talent that deserves to start for a team. And I get that. And the problem is, like, you signed 6 of them. And at the end of the day, one of them has to, and like, you could still make some substitutions. I feel like, I don't know. It would be very hard for me to like make a plan that didn't involve Pine being out there. It's kind of like Fleta, right? Like, Soul made substitutions, but Fleta didn't go anywhere, because let's be real. And I think that teams should have that guy, and I think it's okay to have that guy, and it's okay to have people on the bench. And I think there's a little bit too much of like trying to use everybody, right? Because I mean, you don't sign the guy if you don't believe in him, right? Like, just because I don't believe in him doesn't mean that I'm right. I've been wrong plenty in this game and on this show, and I will be in the future. Just right now, it doesn't look like I am about this particular one, but I could even be proven wrong. I don't know. And we're, like you said, we're probably going to see, I would expect to see some stubbornness from Houston on this particular issue. That's the face they're putting on right now.
Sure.
And there's multiple ways out of it, right? Like, this is the Overwatch League is an environment where people can get better, and they can get better
Mhm.
quickly. I do believe that when you put them in this environment, they will rise to the occasion and meet it. And if they don't, you have a very easy decision come drops time or come the
Right.
end of the season when their contracts expire.
Right.
So there's a decent chance Clockwork levels up. Like, he was thought to be one of the best scouts in TF2. Like, he's
Yeah.
clearly got the talent in him. I've seen him play better in the past, and it's hard to tell in old Overwatch that could have been the quality of the opponent, stuff
Right.
like that. But this was, to my eye, especially against Philadelphia, it was the worst I've ever seen him. And at the absolute worst time. Maybe he reacted poorly to the stage. I don't know. There's a lot of factors here.
Sure.
But for the time being, listen, they're 0-2, and we talked about what is a panic button, record to have leaving stage 1, and 2 wins was our mark here. We got a matchup coming against Shanghai. Get your job done. You're halfway, like, you're a third of the way to the don't panic
If
zone.
Houston loses to Shanghai, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, right.
I'll
Like, all
send
bets
my
are off. I'm
condolences.
terrified. I'll be terrified. I don't know, what to make of that. And maybe, who knows? Shanghai could do something, could put Dia back on Widowmaker and all of a sudden look like a completely different team than they did this week. Who knows? I'm far from confident even in the Shanghai matchup. I know who I favor and who I like, but can I see a world where, yeah, I can. Clearly, my world has been rocked by this team. Like, I thought we saw enough of a compete level from them in the preseason to think they would not need these beginning of the season stumbles that I kind of thought they would have initially when I started trying to analyze them. Like, I wouldn't have been shocked when the team got announced by an 0-2 start. But after watching World Cup, after watching the preseason, my expectations went up quite a bit, and a lot. And part of it might have been optimism, but I don't think so, because as high as I was on them, putting them at 4, I saw people have them at 3. I saw people have them at 2. There was clearly they were showing something that they've now lost.
Yeah. Okay. So the last theory I have on it, and then we'll move on, is a little bit tin foil hat strategy.
Perfect.
I don't know what I haven't looked. I don't know what their map schedule is for the next few weeks for New York, but if they have a strong, like, if they're going against Seoul or they're going against, another top 4 team, London maybe, or even Dallas, if they're going against one of those teams and the map pool is the same map pool that we saw this week, they might want to hide their Pine strategy to get them to think that they're not going to play Pine, so they're not prepared for what Pine is going to do on those maps. So they're essentially saying, you know what, we can beat Boston and we can beat Houston without using Pine on these maps. We'll use it. We lost a map. Okay, now we're mad. We want to win. Put Pine in. And you want to win, put Pine in. You heard it here first. You probably didn't hear it here first. I'm sure people have said it before. But they may have planned, if they just rolled through, they may have planned to not even play Pine. I don't know. This is why this is a little bit tinfoil hat. But I could see it where, like, okay, we're not showing you what our Pine strategy is because we're going to win these maps without Pine because we're that much better than you. It's possible. I don't know. Again, I haven't been given any reason to think that besides Bare Hands being relatively confident when asking him about stuff. But I don't know. Those are my 2 theories on the substitutions. I don't think that's the case for Houston. I got nothing for you, Death, on Houston, but I honestly, now that we can now say, okay, animosity's gone. We're back on the same team. We don't need to root against each other. I can put up my green walls and all that stuff. I don't need to start getting mad every time I see something.
Yeah, we can join each other in some of the fun of rooting. Like, it doesn't have to be a rivalry. It was weird. You even said something earlier that, like, wasn't negative. Like, I don't know, just hearing you say Houston Outlaws just perked my attention. I'm like, I gotta be mad. So we can join together in rooting against Dallas. But we do have, so these are the official standings. Again, it's after 1 week, so it's not really divided, but we've got LA Valiant at first place at 2-0, London 2-0, Seoul 2-0, and then New York at 2-0. So there's your top 4 based on standings. 5 through 8 are new Boston, LA Gladiators, San Francisco Shock, and Philadelphia Fusion. And then, of course, at the bottom, you've got Houston, Dallas, Florida, and Shanghai. So obviously that's not really useful right now, but this is going to be our Overwatch League Bible and playoff Bible moving forward, and stage championship as well. So
that is going to be it's going to be interesting to keep a look at that moving on. But we are quickly running out of time, so let's move on and
let's break it
down. So we're going to break down the matchups that we have for next week, week 2 of Overwatch League, and we will start it off with Wednesday. We've got the San Francisco Shock versus the Philadelphia Fusion. San Francisco Shock has 5 different maps this week, and the Fusion have 7. Death, what can we take from this map?
Well, looking at the San Francisco Shock side, they didn't really live up to the preseason hype that they built.
Nope.
Baby Bay didn't really continue to carry, so I have a big question about whether or not he can be a true carry for this team. Philadelphia Fusion should be viewed as a very beatable matchup for them. I think they're kind of in the same tier right now. On the Philadelphia side, we saw 2 completely different teams. We saw a team that took Houston, a preseason favorite of a lot of people, to the brink 5 games and closed it out, got the win. So are we going to see the impressive team or the invisible one we saw against London? And I'm not going to hate on them for losing to London. I'm going to hate on them for not showing up against London. It was brutal.
Yeah.
Outside of one glorious play by Shadowburn, where he like triple mined and got a little help from his Orisa with a hold to like rip a Roadhog from the ground and put him up on the high ground, separated from his team and kill him, was an absolute thing of beauty. But that was just about the only positive thing that came from that particular match.
I think Fraggy got the fastest Earth Shatter charge up I've ever seen, ever.
Had to be really, really close.
It was like it was like 10 seconds in or something.
A note on Fraggy: his Winston is just remarkably better than the last time we saw it. Really, really impressive level up from them.
But
should mean
fantasy points.
No, maybe not great for fantasy. Nice try on that call, A Smith. I liked it when you said it didn't pay off. The other thing for Philadelphia is that we saw Neptuno against Houston and we saw Dayfly against London. So I'm wondering how that shakeup continues to play out for this team. Moving in, we're both actually going to be taking the Philadelphia Fusion to win this one. We're going to go with a 3-1 score.
Yep.
And the fans are going to agree with us with an 88% approval rating for Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a placement match essentially for both. This is going to be a match where, depending on the result, this is going to be a big swinger of movement and the power rankings. I think both of these teams are in flux. They're kind of both hovering in that very big middle tier right now, middle low, middle high. I don't know. This week is going to obviously be a big formation for a lot of teams, but this matchup specifically seems like it's going to be 2 very close in the power rankings teams playing against each other. So it'll be interesting to see who pulls out.
For what it's worth, I think this is a good opportunity to maybe go against the grain a little bit here. The reason we're going to be talking about the number of maps these teams prepare for is mostly because I'm really watching it as a statistic. I think there's a decent chance it's a good indicator when the teams are close. Maybe not when it's not close and the talent level is very different, but when it's a close contest, I think it might be a good indicator, just how focused is your practice, how much are you preparing for. So it's something we're keeping an eye on. We're not saying it means a whole lot yet, but we're keeping track of it and we're doing it with you guys. So
yeah, definitely could see the flip here based on that alone. I mean, I think they're close enough for that to be a good call. So good catch on that one. Second match we're going to see is the Florida Mayhem, who's preparing for 7 maps, versus the Seoul Dynasty, who's preparing for 6 maps. So, I mean, that extra map that Florida has to prepare for is really going to cost them here, right? Death, right?
Florida, you're dead to me. I'm all out. I have no interest in you anymore. I really, for the first time, I borrowed Blevins' soapbox. I stood on it. And I said, Boston's not there yet. They need time to build up to be a team that can compete with a team that has months and months of, pre-established history and team cohesion. That's how much all that stuff mattered. It didn't. Florida is a tire fire. I want nothing to do with them anymore. On the opposite side, we've got the Seoul Dynasty. So are we playing kooky for all easy matchups, or did you just kind of roll it out there week 1 to kind of get everybody a feel for it, get everybody acclimated? And that's another thing.
Fantasy point discussion right now.
a little bit, but yeah, because it doesn't really matter too much to the outcome here either way. And same thing with DPS subs. I really want to know, and we talked about it. Don't surrender maps you don't have to. Like, don't get too cute with your substitutions. Rotate them in and out if you want, and you think you can get away with it. And I think you can. Both of us are going to be taking Seoul here 4-0. The fans agree to the tune of 97%.
Yeah, not much here. I think this is just my time to get on my soapbox and then just call you over to kick it right out from underneath my feet so I fall flat on my face. I put myself out there for you, Florida. I put myself out there, and you know what? All the excuses I made for them just right out the window. I'm done. I'm not. I can't. I don't know. I don't. I can. I'm gonna pick them to win one more match ever. I think, and that's
If
this
you're
week.
wrong, yeah, that'll be the last one.
Right. I mean, that'll be the lastest straw. Like, I will never pick them again until they change up something drastically, and I think it might already be there.
One thing I'll say is, listen to this. You hear this? That was the sound of me deleting the screenshot of me killing Pluppy. Because you're dead to me.
It's gone. It's gone. Don't get me wrong. I still love the Plupster, but like as a team, they look so bad after those first two maps against Spitfire. Like the whole rest of that match, and then all of Boston. All of Boston. They got 4-0'd. It was a dumpster fire. It's going to be a 4-0 here. I think 97% from the fans is actually a little bit low. I think it should be closer to 100. Honestly.
It's not your most confident matchup, which is
surprising.
Yeah, surprising.
There's no way. I'm sorry. My love and thought that maybe former champions and high level players could get there from old Overwatch, but like I said, the level up has happened, and I think there's going to be even more level up. So unless Mayhem does something crazy at the signings, or they change their strategy and what they're doing and ramp it up a lot, they're going to be at the very bottom of the standings for quite some time. But I don't want to dig myself too deep into a hole. Let's just move on to a match that might have something to talk about. Maybe, I don't know. The next match is going to be your Houston Outlaws practicing 5 maps versus the Shanghai Dragons, who are dealing with 7. Death, what's the rundown on this one?
So, yeah, if the maps thing is any indication, Outlaws gets an advantage here on top of just kind of being a favorite on the overall here. My notes here, even Clockwork can win this one, right? I mean, hopefully we don't find out. Hopefully we can just gain some confidence and some momentum going into a Dallas matchup. Like, just keep your starters out there.
Yeah.
If you've ever needed to 4-0 somebody, you've needed it right now. Please, please, please leave Jake and Lynxer in there to just crush these guys into the ground. On the opposite side for the Shanghai Dragons, can we put Dia on Widowmaker, please? Like, he looked primo. Like, I was excited to see Shanghai play for the sake of getting to see Dia make some ridiculous plays, and now all of a sudden he's playing the Tracer, Undead is playing the Widowmaker, and Undead did okay, but this is another scenario where it's like there's different levels. Like, right, there's right. Okay, there's adequate, there's did good things, and then there's was dominant and like did phenomenal things and looked like a carry potential player. I didn't see that out of Dia. It almost feels like they downgraded their whole team as a result, and we already had them at 12. However, going into these picks, neither of us are willing to call this one a 4-0. We're both going to take a 3-1. Listen, until I can wrap my head around what Houston's doing with the lineup, until they can convince me that either they're not going to make those subs anymore, or that those subs are right and that there's solid reasoning behind them. I'm not unwilling to concede that there might be reasoning for it and it might be okay. I'm not really willing to concede that about Lynxer coming out, but that you might bring Clockwork in, like it might be okay. You have to show me why though, and you're not going to be able to do that against the Shanghai Dragons. But yeah, we're talking about Dia here anyways. Get him back on the Widowmaker so that we can at least have something to look forward to from watching this. Otherwise, it's going to be a lot of 4 Overwatch when we get to see these guys. But yeah, Houston 3-1, and the fans agree to the tune of 99%.
Yeah, let's see Houston Outlaws win a match before I start giving them 4-0s against teams.
Yeah, 100%. Can't even argue with it.
Yeah, I know. I didn't mean that to be as pointed as it was, but it is in fact true.
I've been pointed enough. It was probably pretty light.
Yeah. Let's move on to Thursday. We've got Dallas, Houston Outlaws running it back. They're practicing, of course, like I said, 5 maps, and they're going to be going against their in-state rivals, the Dallas Fuel. This is a big one, Death. Both teams have not won a match yet, although one of them may have by this time. So, but
Yeah, both teams with 5 maps, I think, is going to really make this thing a pretty fair fight here going into it. I mean, we've got to lean Dallas here
Yeah.
to an extent. For whatever reason, I didn't put this thing in my pick in for the pick'em, so I'm going to look for it. Obviously, I know who I'm taking. I just don't remember what the map score I put in was. But yeah, so listen, Dallas is showing for the first time, right? And right now there might be in panic mode. At the end of that Valiant match, we saw them tilt out, right? When Soon backcapped that point on point 2 of Numbani, it broke that team. Okay, and it's the last map, and it's easy to get broken there or whatever. But listen, we haven't seen Envy deal with losing streaks much. Like we haven't seen them drop back-to-back matches probably ever. I maybe not, like maybe in Apex it happened at the end. But like when that happens, they get to go home on break. Like the season's over, right? Like if it happens in the playoffs, you don't have to rebound from it, and you don't have to keep your head on straight. You can tilt out on the plane ride home. That's fine. You're not, hurting the team. Now they need to get back out there, and they need to perform, and they need to beat a team that is just as desperate as they are, because they're not. Houston's going to change 0 minds by beating Shanghai. So yeah, we have to really see what Dallas is made of, what they can do to come back from this. I think they'll be okay after a reset, but I'd be very curious to see what happens. Houston starts fast. That's what they've done every time so far. So if they start fast here, it could really snowball on Dallas, and I really, really want to see that. Hopefully they have an advantage as well from Houston having to prepare for Shanghai right before. And it's worth noting Houston is ending ending Wednesday and opening Thursday. So just about as little time between matches as humanly possible here. An extra little challenge. I'm going to take the Houston Outlaws 3-2. So Blevins, why don't you tell them who you're going to take, since it's different?
Yeah, I'm going to pick Dallas 3-1. This is still me clinging on to old Overwatch. It is entirely possible that we see the team that loses this match spiral uncontrollably downward, especially if it's Dallas, honestly. Like you mentioned, Dallas just has that built-in tilt factor. Like they, you've got, I don't want to say immature, but you've got players like Taimu who known to tilt, XQC known to tilt, and not even like the XQC of like the streamer, but like actually like the player tilting, and like it makes sense. I can't say that I wouldn't tilt if I were in that same situation, but there
paid not to.
you gotta not. That's the whole thing. It is extremely detrimental to the team to tilt out like that. And
and they're one Twitter flare up from XQC away from like already they could potentially be like, especially with the conflicting attitudes a little bit, like Effect versus kind of the meme lords that are there. They have to avoid that, so everybody's got to be on their best behavior. Like they're one spark away from trouble, and they're 2 tough matchups this week, so got to win one of them.
I wouldn't be surprised if at the signing period, if Dallas Fuel is like, you know what, we're changing the direction of the team. We're going to build a team around Effect. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it's early to call that. It's very early to call that, but I just thought of it, so I'm going to put it out there just so I can be proved wrong or proved horrifically right. But both of these teams right now have not won a match. They're both trending downward right now. It really could be anyone's game here. I'm just history's on my side here for Dallas, even just from contenders like FNRG FE versus Envy was not close.
I'm fanboying a little bit, like I'm homering with that pick. My head does tell me Dallas is most likely to take it, but one thing I do think Houston can do to really kind of help trigger this, dynamite to blow up here, run heavy counter comps. I would love to see, okay, Taimu's on Widow, I guess Lynx are snapping to Widow because 2 headshots might just end the map,
right?
If we can tilt him out, just run really heavy counter comps, force them to switch heroes and keep them from getting comfortable and getting in their momentum and doing exactly what they want to do, even if it like costs you a map early on. I think it could end up helping you in the long run to just keep them uncomfortable and keep them on the back foot. Even if they're kind of falling through and winning anyways, like just don't let them be comfortable. And I think Houston can have a serious opportunity at this one.
Yeah, and this is another one like we talked about last time. Like if this were actual like betting odds, I would probably bet against the field here where the fans are saying 89% for Dallas. I think that's high. I think that's good enough odds to bet against that. Because you'd get paid off in an upset here. But that's not how it works. I just like thinking like that because it's fun, and maybe someday it will be like that. So, but moving on, we've got NYXL versus who's practicing 6 maps versus LA Valiant also practicing 6 maps. Death, what's the rundown on this?
So for New York, I want to see these new maps. What haven't they played? Is Pine involved in any of them? Pine. Everything revolves around the guy that they play the least. Just keep building momentum. Don't give away maps because it can hurt you later on, like we talked about. No, there's no reason to panic. There's no reason to, even if they are just reserving them and in my opinion misusing them, like it's still working for you. So keep going with it. But I don't know. It's just hard for me to wrap my head around. As you can tell, I can't move past it. On the other side, the Los Angeles Valiant. I want to know, are they a mirage? They were 7-0-1 in maps, I'm pretty sure, throughout the first week. And that was really, really impressive, especially considering Dallas was one of those teams. I think people definitely picked them to lose that one. We did get to see agilities get worked in a little bit in the first week. Is this going to be a slow takeover because Silk Thread was getting most of the scrim time? Or, how is this going to play out? Or is Agility is just kind of like a one map kind of guy? When you are 100% positive you want the Genji, it's Agilities, and the rest of the time it's Silk Thread. That's really what I'm trying to figure out here. From a Los Angeles Valiant standpoint, I think what they need to do is, obviously, if Pine is out there, you have to just overly commit to him. You need a tank in his face 100% of the time. You need to be aggressive with your DPS. New York hasn't really been challenged yet. When they've been challenged within maps, they've been proven to be able to be beaten. So the team can fall. I'm just personally not sure that the Los Angeles Valiant are going to be the team to do it. I'm going to take New York 3-1 here. Blevins, what do you got? 5-0?
No, this is definitely New York's hardest matchup yet. This is really a placement match for LA Valiant, and really in a way a placement match for New York. I've got them right next to each other in the power rankings right now. 2 playoff caliber teams playing, and it's going to be very telling if and how much we see Pine, and if LA Valiant is ready for that. I mean, you have to imagine that if you're LA Valiant right now, you're practicing, you're watching everything that Pine's doing. You're watching you're trying to watch the tape of Pine as much as you can, and to see if you can counter it. Because at the end of the day, like, I think if you're playing against New York and Pine's going to be out there, you have to let SBB and Jonik kill you. You have to let them beat you, because you can't, like, Pine is going to do that. Like, Pine is going to be able to take over your whole team and beat you single-handedly, potentially. He can do that. So force, like, if you're going to lose, you're going to lose, but you need to put yourself in the best situation to do that. And even though, like, making SBB beat you is not a proposition I necessarily want to take, it's the one they have to take, because if you just let Pine run free, you're done. That is hook, line, and sinker. It's done. So I agree. They've got to pressure Pine, and hope that they can, win the tracer duels with SBB and win the duels against SBB. And
you don't even got to win those duels. You just gotta trace them, spread them out. You got to make them take a while, right? Gotta not lose them quick, and then, so that SBB doesn't get to come help Pine. You can use one tracer to really harass SBB and Jonak and let the rest of your team really aggress on Pine. Easier said than done, obviously, since New York has some really quality tanks.
The random picks too, and like how crucial are those when the Zenyatta just gets the frag that pushes the fight? Like, it's not going to be easy. I'll tell you that much. That's one of the beauties of New York is that they have such they have such a high skill ceiling that I don't even think we've seen yet.
They do. I'm actually dying to see more of Jonak here too. I mean, we're
Yeah.
giving this matchup a little too much time, but just from the sake of like, listen, I mean, his skill was apparent. Like he's clearly a very, very highly rated Zenyatta. But what I didn't see from him was I didn't see him finish those kills, right? Like I saw him pump out just a ton of damage.
Yeah.
He didn't miss shots. But and it's hard to tell too, right? Because when the team's playing well and when Libero and SBB are all over the place, wrapping up your kills, it's not really a knock on you. But that's why I just want to see more of a larger sample size to just see him pop off on the kill feed a little bit more. I thought that was kind of the one thing that was missing. And if I'm looking at this as an opponent trying to do tape on him, I might give Jonak a little free range. So maybe, you know, make him prove he can do it before we commit somebody to him to really worry about it. I feel confident he can, but it's one of those things, like make him show it on the stage, make him hit those headshots and not, you know, finish the kills. Like you want to see teams finish matches, players have to be able to finish kills too.
Right. Yeah.
So that's
I think you definitely have to let him beat you. And then I think the last thing is you have to be you have to have your strategies and be willing to adapt your strategies very well to beat New York. We saw Dallas kind of bamboozle New York a little bit, and they, you know, Jonak is an amazing DPS Zenyatta, but his trances were off a little bit. He got better at it as the match went on, but there's definitely a little bit of team cohesion and play running that's just a little bit off for New York, and they make up for it in their skill. And like mid-season, we're probably not going to have this discussion, but Valiant is lucky enough to be able to play them this early on. So if they're going to be able to beat them, they need to do those two things: stop Pine and really be cohesive with your strategy, which they've been very good at. But that was a little bit too long, but I mean, it's Excel, man. I got to talk about them.
Yeah, it's our teams. We'll always be longer.
We're always going to do this. Guys, if you don't want that to be the case, go watch a different podcast because we're going to be the most biased one out there. I don't care what, you know, journalistic ethics say what we should and shouldn't do.
Podcasters don't have those.
I wear an Excel hat every single day of my life, so shut up. Moving on, we've got the Philadelphia Fusion practicing for 7 maps versus the LA Gladiators for 8 maps. Death, what's the rundown?
Again, Philadelphia, tale of two teams. Which one are they going to come out with? Show me some consistency. I don't even care if you don't have that flashy big first game where you win. Like I would be okay from an 0-2 week from the Philadelphia Fusion here, but stabilize things. Show me a little consistency.
Be there.
Yeah, stop going all over the place here. We need to figure out who you are. Speaking of figuring out who they are, we don't really know about the Los Angeles Gladiators. I was pleasantly surprised from the eyeball test this week in week 1. I thought it was really good. But listen, they played against Seoul, everybody's #1 team. And then they played against Shanghai, and actually the opposite order, everybody's #12 team. So that doesn't really tell us much. All we know is that they're distinctly somewhere in between the best and the worst. That's not a ton to go off of. So I want to see them. You know, they're running less innovative 3 DPS stuff so far from what we've seen. I want to see that come back, especially if you're losing. Throw something at Seoul. Like, what does it cost you? Maybe they ran it and I didn't see it. I don't know. But I don't remember seeing it, and I remember wanting to see it. For the time being here, I really don't value inconsistency very highly. I'm going to give this one to the Los Angeles Gladiators. I did think they put up, you know, a good solid compete level in both of their matches. So until I know exactly what I'm getting from Philadelphia, I'd rather be wrong when they blow up than when they disappear. So I'm going to give this one to the LA Gladiators 3-1. What do you got, Blitz?
Yeah, I mean, in the same vein, I'm giving it to Philadelphia. I think they it very easily could be like a Gladiators 4-0. I'm picking Philly 3-2 because I think I just feel like they have the capacity to, like, Poco looks so good. The DPS looked so good at times for Philly, and I think like the inconsistencies there now, but you can look back and be like, okay, well, we did really well here. We excelled from this. Poco did really well. Like, let's boost that. Let's take that and run with it. And really try to refine that in. It could happen. Maybe it won't, but I'm thinking it might. There was never really a time that I can remember where I was like, man, Gladiators look so good here. And there were a lot of times where I was like, wow, Philly looks real good here. And then there were also times where I was like, wait, Philly's playing here? I thought this was just like a replay of like a blank map. So
This is
it is
the battle of the high noon bump, though. We got Fraggy versus the biggest of gooses.
That's true, and Big Goose
really
had a
excited
really good
about
week
that.
too.
He did.
So I mean, most of our matches, since we've had people from 11 of the 12 teams, are going to have the high noon bump battle, but 2 recent ones for sure. So, and then the fans have Philly at 65%. And I forgot to mention the fans had New York at 68% for the last map. So definitely close ones, to say the least. But we do move on to Friday. We've got the Seoul Dynasty practicing 6 maps versus the Uprising also practicing 6 maps. What is the rundown here, Death?
Boy, I sure don't like Boston. So, Soul, you got to crush them into the ground. Show no mercy. And by that, I mean, don't play mercy. Just give them the ultimate disrespect. Like, don't even run the best hero in the meta. Please, just for the sake of a better watching experience. But yeah, both teams preparing for 6 maps. No real advantage there. I don't think either team are playing exceptionally close to each other either. So a pretty stand-up fight as far as pluses and minuses go. Unfortunately, I think Seoul is just a decidedly better team here. From Boston, though, they're continuing to impress me, and I'm continuing to reluctantly have to move them slowly up my power rankings. And I don't know if it's that they're getting better or if it's that we had way too much faith in Florida, and who knows.
Yeah.
But this should just be an absolute whitewash. One thing to note, Kalios played more than Note. Does this continue? Are they still undecided, or what's going on? So far, the week 1 indication is that the preseason they were not showing us the starters, despite how well Note performed and did when he got in week 1. He had, he did pretty well. But yeah, I don't know. We're giving this one to Seoul 4-0, and again, the fans agree with a whopping 99%.
Yeah. Only thing I'll say here is that Boston is known for coming out very quick, very fast, very hard, and running that strategy into the ground. That is not necessarily conducive to what Seoul is doing. But, I talked about this before. Boston's kind of like a combo deck in Magic, where like they come out very strong, very fast. If you have the counter for it, okay, you got it. But if you don't, you just lose. So I don't think that's going to be the case here. But it's all like Boston seems like the type of team that can always that has the potential to take a map off of anyone just because of their style of play. So I don't know. I don't predict that it's going to happen, but I could see it happening. But let's move on. We've got the dumpster fire battle. This one's going to be great. We've got the Shanghai Dynasty with 7 maps to practice versus Florida Mayhem with 7 as well. What do we got here? This spicy dumpster fire.
Oh, why did I say I was going to watch every match in season 1? So the Shanghai Dragons are going to go against the Florida Mayhem. This is 11 versus 12 in everybody's ranks. We're already off of Florida completely. I will not be even remotely surprised if Shanghai finds their win here. These are the matchups where Shanghai will find their win. And listen, Florida looked okay in their first matchup week 1. And the difference was Logix didn't play Tracer. Like, they put him on Soldier, they put him on McCree. He looked better. So you see what you've done to me, Florida. I can't even be confident that you'll beat Shanghai. This is ridiculous. I'm so behind, so angry. And I'm not even confident when I make this pick.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Florida's going to win 3-2 here. The main reason is because I think there's a decent chance that, Logix flexes off of Tracer. And we see them look at the tape from last week and go, okay, we had a better result when you weren't playing Tracer, so let's try to force some compositions that get you to play the Soldier, that get you to play the McCree. Try to get a little more value. If suddenly there's 2 DPS that are very scary for the Florida Mayhem, they might be able to turn things around here. But I mean, you fool me once, shame on you. You're not getting me again. Show it to me if you want me to believe in it, Florida.
Yeah, I mean, Logix on McCree was actually quite good in the maps that he played it in, but I think if you rebuild the strategy of let's put Logix on McCree and build it around that, maybe they've got something here. I'm going to pick Florida to win this, but only because it's Shanghai. I'm not picking them against any other team, and I think this is a good one where you can just you could just pick Shanghai here. The fans pick Florida at 85%. I think that's asinine in terms of how high it is. So if you're betting against the odds here, I would like from a value bet perspective, I'm 100% taking Shanghai here. Again, that's not how it works. That's just how I like to think about it because it's fun. But this is one where you could easily flip it for some maybe try to get some edge in your high noon pick'em leagues. But Let's move on. We've got the London Spitfire practicing for 6 maps versus the Dallas Fuel practicing for 5 maps. Death, what's the rundown on this one?
Yeah, so listen, so much of this one depends on the first match, right? Like, so is Dallas still floundering? Like, did they get beat by Houston? And are they facing 0-4? I think that means drastically different things. I don't see any reason why Dallas can't compete with London. London has combined their 2 rosters together, something I'm very, very happy that they did. I think it makes them a little weaker out of the gate, but again, I think on the overall, it'll make them stronger and a better competitor come playoff time. And kind of got themselves right back into that number 2 spot for me, or they're just very comfortable there. And I think they're a team that in a little bit of time here might be able to challenge Seoul, to be perfectly honest with you, just because of their ability to combine those 2 rosters and come up with a Kongdu Busan roster that just crushes all. I don't know. I'm really impressed with what they've been able to do. I'm very curious to see what they're going to do as far as, there's 6 other players there, and what we saw them do in the preseason was hot swap the entire thing. So we might see them roll out with the complete other 6 here in this matchup and play them all this week. We just don't know. We might see them play one of the rosters in the first matchup and the other one in the second, because they're another one. They end Friday and then they open Saturday. That's actually 2 less hours than Houston has for the same challenge. So that's really daunting. Maybe they can just split the teams up completely, prepare them completely separately. Huge advantage to a 12-man roster. We've talked about it. These are the kind of things they're going to have the ability to do. Makes it very difficult to predict, but for the time being, I'm not very sold Dallas is gonna win against Houston. I'm only kind of leaning that direction. If it doesn't happen, I think I definitely take London. It could be a 4-0. It could be that, it could get bad for Dallas quick here. Assuming they rebound though, they're gonna definitely be able to compete. Like, these are teams they've been competing with for a good little while now. So no major concerns as far as that goes. But it's just, every question I have will change by the time the roster comes up. So, or by the time their first match has been played for Dallas. Like I said, for London, who are they going to play? Fuel has the map advantage by 1 here. I don't expect that to be a major player. I think it's going to be more when you see 4 maps versus 8 maps and 7 maps versus 4 maps, stuff like that we see a big advantage. So give me London here 3-1, and Blevins here does agree with me. The fans agree as well, to the tune of 82%. But Blevins, I know you have a note here on this one as well.
I do. So this is another one where you don't actually get to make this call, you don't actually get to change because your roster or your picks lock in once the maps start. But if Dallas wins against Houston, I could see them pulling out a win against London.
Yeah.
Look, they don't Dallas is trending downward, but their raw player skill is still there. Their team cohesion is still there, and their strategy is still there. They're only going to get better. If they lose, I see them losing. If they win, I see them having a chance to win. I still don't think they're necessarily favored, but again, 82% for London seems high against a team that has the longest win streak in Overwatch history. Basically going to be the longest win streak ever of any team in Overwatch history. So I'm never going to count Dallas out, at least not for quite some time against anyone. So
it take like 2 more 0-2 weeks for us to just assume they're going to lose to really anybody. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. It would take a lot for me to lose faith in them this season. A lot. It would take something like a very huge upset where they looked really bad.
And as a side note, we're never going to change our picks after the fact. Like, what we say on the show will always be what we put in the high noon pick'em. But I think you guys do have the capability to go in and make switches the day of the match.
Now for sure.
Right. But I think even so after Wednesday happens, like on Thursday morning, I think you can go in and change Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Really?
I'm pretty sure for the pick'em that is true. And you guys should be taking advantage of that. Like, it's something you guys should definitely be using.
I didn't know you could do that.
I'm pretty sure. I'm not 100%, but I thought I saw the ability to do it, and I sat there
be able to,
looking at it, mad that I couldn't, because I said them out loud on the show already.
If Dallas wins, I would seriously consider maybe putting them at a 3-2 or a 2-1. They've drawn in every map they've played so far, so maybe you can
And-
really get some points by calling out the 2-1 or something.
Yeah, and if you're picking Dallas to win now and then they lose to Houston, come back and switch that to London.
Yeah, swap it over.
Yeah.
But moving into Saturday, we've got the LA Valiant playing the London Spitfire, 6 maps apiece for them. Death, what do you got here?
Yeah, so again, this is another one of those back-to-back scenarios from London. Same questions apply. Which team are you going to play? We don't really know. This is a huge proving ground for the LA Valiant. They have a real opportunity here to, in my opinion, people are kind of overreacting on them a little bit. And not that they're wrong. It's just that I'm not willing to, like, my power rankings, I refuse to move anybody more than 2 spots in a week. Like, this is a 40-week season, and it leads to some weird things. Like, if you look at my power rankings right now, Houston sits 1 spot over Philadelphia, but they just lost to Philly. So I can't blame anybody for switching them, but I just have a rule when it comes to power rankings is that, like, overreaction leads to the document being inaccurate for longer, right? If you limit yourself in your movements, you'll find that maybe, if I dropped them 3 or 4 spots, it was going to be too far, right? Like, if we're looking at this week and Houston does beat Dallas, you're going to go, oh, okay, well, yeah, maybe they're 5. Maybe I was wrong. I had them at 4, but they should have just only dropped to 5. Okay, that makes sense. Stuff like that. So I don't know. It's a little bit weird. I'm not all in on the Valiant yet. I love what they're doing. They were really fun to watch. But for the time being, at least, I'm going to assume London has an advantage here. I don't know how many times. I don't think Immortals got many opportunities to go up against Korean rosters. I know they're definitely eyeing it. I think in their, what is a goal for you guys, or what are you most looking forward to? Most of the team said we want to play against Korean rosters and beat them. So they've got their work cut out for them, to say the least. A little iffy with the London pick just because I don't know what 6 they're going to roll out still, but I'm going to give it to London 3-1.
Yeah, here's one where I'm picking the opposite. I'm picking Valiant 3-2. I have moved in on Valiant. I think that they're a very good team. I think, like, it seems like, at least right now, and potentially if Fuel falls off the rails, it's not the case anymore, but Fuel is they're the gatekeeper right now for the upper echelon. I think many people had them at 4, some at 3. Like, 4 and up is basically where people had Fuel going in, and history is on their side in a big way. So if you can beat Fuel, you are in that upper echelon. Now, granted, London also is in that upper echelon, so this is going to be a huge placement match for Valiant. I don't know. I still just have there's too many things that really have nothing to do with actually playing the game that make me feel bad about London. So I guess it's a little bit of a gut pick with Valiant. They've ruined fantasy teams. They lost to the Gladiators in the preseason. They have turmoil with their rosters potentially. There's just so many factors that are just not the case for Valiant. It seems like Valiant is like a well-oiled machine in that case. And while player for player, skill wise, I think London has it here, but I'm picking Valiant. The fans have London 72%. It's also worth noting, if Valiant 2-0s this week, all of a sudden they are like a strong number 2, potentially number 3 at lowest in the power rankings, like out of nowhere, where they were like in a lot of people's bottom half of their power rankings.
Yeah, I think they'd have to go straight to 3 or 4. I don't think you can topple any team that's really above you until you play against them, or they massively disappoint, right? Like, they have to drop. I don't think you can leapfrog somebody you haven't played.
They would be beating New York and London.
Oh, New York's the first one.
Yeah,
okay.
New York
So they would,
and London. They would jump.
Yeah, you're
100%.
You're 100% correct. Yeah, they would basically go straight to 2. So a big week and a big opportunity here for the LA Valiant. Their fans must be very excited. One thing I just want to respond real quick to what you said. I think we have to throw out that London preseason disappointment from the GC Busan roster,
100%.
Because if they were practicing as not the rosters and then put them back together on no teamwork, like those players were never playing together, then we just kind of have to throw it out and laugh that they got grounded from social media as like a complete front. It was just really, really funny. But yeah,
100%. It has nothing to do with actual logic or in-game play. It's just me like having a bad taste in my mouth, and I don't want to make too many picks when I have a bad taste in my mouth.
at the end of the day, the preseason might not count for anything, but those uniforms and those players in those uniforms went out there and lost to a team that we thought they were better than, and that sticks with you. That's hard to get out of your mind for sure.
For sure. So let's move on. We've got the LA Gladiators versus the New York Excelsior Gladiators, 8 maps XL with 6. What do you got here, Death?
Well, we've got a decided map advantage here, and again, the Gladiators don't really have the flexibility. I don't think that the New York Excelsior have with a couple extra roster members. That leaves a little bit of an unknown factor here. I took the Gladiators to win against Philly. I think we might be in a situation, especially when we see 8 maps. That's a daunting task. I really think there's a decent chance they might over prepare for the 4 on the easier matchup and not give the same total amount of time here in the map pool that they're going to have to go against New York. They'll have plans for all of them in place because they've been together for however long. But it's just about reps and running through and refining things and how much time you get to actually go and cement the strategies. I don't know. I've got to lean towards New York here for sure. It's going to be 3-1 in my book. For what it's worth, Blevins, you agree with me, and the fans are all in as well, 89%.
Yeah, I honestly kind of feel bad I gave Gladiators the 1 map here. I think it's going to be a 4-0. I think it could be a 4-0. I really like this is a New York should win this one. And hopefully they're going to be able to prove that they can win the maps that they should win, which they have been able to thus far, but like we saw against Boston, like they're just giving away maps, which I'm not super thrilled about. So I'm really hoping we see a 4-0 here because it's going to kind of cement them. I'm like, okay, this is where we are. Don't underestimate us. So, but moving on, the last map of week 2, or the last match of week two. Can't talk. Boston Uprising with 6 maps versus San Francisco Shock with 5 maps. What do you have here, Death?
Well, again, these are 2 teams that are in flux. Like, we're still trying to figure out Boston, and I think people, most people I think are a little higher up on them than I am. I'm going to give this one to the San Francisco Shock 3-2. It's close in my book. Like, these guys are right next to each other, I believe, in my power rankings right now. I want to say they're 9 and 10. So this is, like you said, it's a placement game. I think it's going to be pretty close. I think we're going to see swingy plays like we've seen from these teams. Like, we're going to see Baby Bay pop off on a map, and then we're going to see Dreamcasper pop off on a map, and then it'll be Striker, and they're just going to kind of alternate here. So I see this one going the distance, closing out the weekend in style here, going to 5. So San Francisco 3-2. Who do you got here, Blitz?
Yeah, I've got Boston here. I know you can't ever pick Boston. You're contractually obligated as a Buffalo Bills fan to never pick Boston for anything. But Boston. Here's the difference between the 2 teams, and it's really not in-game related. It's Boston is trending up, San Francisco's trending down. It's definitely another one of. We're going to see a lot of these in the next couple of weeks. A lot of placement matches here. Boston really has the chance to put themselves up. I mean, they're almost certainly going to lose to Seoul, but if they can take a map, if they can steal a map off of Seoul, or at least look in the game against Seoul, like, people are going to be looking up at them. They're going to actually be showing, okay, we're a team that is in contention here. And I see them as a potential 6 team playoff spot. Like that 6th spot really is very much up in flux, even just after the preseason and the first week, in terms of who could possibly be pulling that. Boston's on the up and up. They've looked good in the games they've played. Even the ones they've lost, they've looked good. So I'm picking them here 3-1, and the fans are actually on my side with this one at Boston favored at 72% here.
Yeah, and I think this is an opportunity to go against, and I just want to make the case real fast. I know I will always publicly admonish Boston and pick on their fans a little bit, but at the same time, I'd be much more in on Boston, and I'd be much more convinced if they'd won 3-2 instead of 4-0 against the Florida Mayhem, because to me, I can't roll out that Florida just disappeared, right? Like, if they just don't show up, we've already established that Boston is a team that can look like they belong on the stage with a lot of these teams. Maybe not the top couple. It might be brutal for, the top 4 teams or what have you. But they belong here. And listen, that's something that we assumed of Florida, but they haven't shown. They definitely haven't really proved that yet. So like I said, I would be more convinced if Boston had won a close match against Florida by this. So I'm just kind of hedging my bets a little bit, and call it stubbornness, call it what you will, but I'm just kind of like sticking a little bit to my initial predictions just for the sake of, I think they're more accurate than if I were to overreact. And, you know, they're more accurate than the standings are right now for how this thing is going to finish, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see it going either way here. But, you know, my gut says Boston, and, you know, again, it's really just the trendings right now. And it's possible, like, this is a match where San Francisco could put a stop to and really stop their downward fall in the power rankings, and Boston could really kind of peter out here. But it's definitely, you know, for the last match of the week, I think it's definitely going to be one to watch, especially if you are a fan of either team. But that's pretty much going to be it. I think we've made it in. It's under 2 hours, which I think is definitely a plus in our book for this one.
It's not bad.
It's not bad. Any last minute stuff here, Death? I know we've talked
a quick iTunes review I want to read. It's even pretty short, so it shouldn't take too much time. But Zarner's left us a 5-star review, says top tier Overwatch podcast. Quality podcast is both entertaining and educational. Can feel the passion from both of the hosts, and I'm thoroughly enjoying every minute. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much, Zarner's. Really, really appreciate the kind words. As always, please do, if you haven't, leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. Helps us reach a whole new audience. Really, really appreciate when people say nice things about us. So we'll read your message on the air.
Yeah, and in that vein, we're now on Google Play Podcast. So if you are new here from Google Play, jump into the Discord and say hi, and let us know that you came from Google Play, because I didn't even really know it was a thing. Someone just told me, hey, why aren't you on Google Play? I'm like, oh, now we are. So I don't know if there's reviews there. I'll check it at some point, maybe. Remind me. But yeah, so huge thanks for that. So we're going to go through the ending. Huge thanks to all the new patrons and all the current patrons. Huge shout outs. You can always go to patreon.com/highnoonpodcast to support us there. Huge shout out to everyone in the Discord. Join the Discord. It's there. Just join it. It's the best Discord out there for Overwatch League discussion, for fantasy Overwatch League, for just Overwatch stuff in general. Go there. It's got literally cutting edge news from people that are finding the stuff as primary sources and posting it in there. We've got pro players, we've got casters, everything in there. Check out the Discord. It's the best place to be. That's over at discord.me/highnoonpodcast. All the links to everything is over at highnoonpodcast.com. Check out all the shows we do. Everything is posted. We post everything everywhere. So if you go to any one of the places, you're going to be able to find all the other stuff. And especially if you go to High Noon Podcast, you can check it out there. But that is going to be it, guys. Thanks for listening. Huge shout outs to Adam Hoek, who put out the awesome outro music, which you're about to hear. But guys, for Deathblow, I'm the Blevins. That's going to be it for this week. Remember, it's High Noon.
Got his boots and he put on his hat. He threw the coin away that same day. It's in his past and he's not looking back. He says, finding mine now, God's my way. He's not good, but he sure ain't bad. He'll make amends for the sins that he has. He says, I'll change the world one bullet at a time till I find mine.
Death, I hear there's something that happens after NYXL loses a match. Loses a map. Do you know what that is?
Boston gets pretty excited.
Oh, what's... Oh, God. What's that noise? Oh, God, it's fine. My God, it's fine.